We have all heard of the expression, the elephant in the room. Well, here to talk about elephant stories and how we can identify them in our own lives is Carlin Purcell. I'd like to say you coined the phrase elephant stories. I haven't heard it anywhere else because you were the one that first mentioned that. What is an elephant story, Car?
So an elephant story is likened after the elephant in the room idiom. They're the not good enough stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves based on what we've experienced in life. And you know, an elephant is like, it's huge, right? So it's also based on the idea that there's a huge elephant in the room. We can all see it, but no one's talking about it.
Yes.
So we go around it in order for us to navigate life. But consciously, it affects our decisions, who we are, how we see ourselves, and so much more.
It can really hold us back.
It can also hold us back as well.
Now, I know that we've sort of dipped our toe into talking about it on Cityline, and I never want to push you to a place where you are uncomfortable, but if you feel comfortable talking about it now, can we talk a bit about your elephant story?
Of course. I mean, that is what started off my whole journey around emotions and vulnerability and self-love. So one of my elephant stories, I would say, when I looked at, I mean, we all want to be in love, right?
Yeah.
And I've been through so many different relationships. And I was at a point in my life where I met this guy and I really liked him.
Okay.
Right? He was bringing, you know, everything I asked to be courted, he was doing it. But I noticed that the self-sabotage was on my end, right? As much as I was getting everything I wanted, I was still holding myself back.
Yeah.
So I had this reflective moment of, Carlin, why are you holding back? Why are you getting in your own way? You say you want it, but you're taking 10 steps back when you actually receive the thing that you want. And I remember, you know, clearly that day in the living room watching television, and there was this ad that said, you know, people were at a party, they were drinking, and this person who was drinking a lot grabbed his keys, and people were like, there's an elephant in the room, because everyone was looking at him and no one said anything.
Yeah.
And people were saying, we need to speak up, but no one spoke up. And I remember looking at the ad going, forget the elephant in his life.
Yeah.
I have an elephant in my life that I need to face.
Right.
And it felt quite heavy and big. And when I asked myself, Carlin, what is that elephant?
Yeah.
That elephant took me back to my childhood, an experience that I went through where I was a survivor of child sexual abuse. And I thought I had already dealt with that. I thought, oh, I was fine. It's not me. You know, it's not really something that I have to deal with. But the thing about our elephant stories is that no matter how long ago we go through it, those not good enough stories, they follow us. And one of the narratives that I carried over from that childhood trauma is that I'm not good enough. Nobody will love me. People want someone who is, you know, whole and complete and who's not, quote unquote, tainted. So that narrative informed my current day perception of who I am and whether or not I was really worthy of love.
Wow. So that was a lot of self-digging, right?
A lot of self-digging.
There are a lot of, we might be looking for a very deep elephant story and a big elephant in the room, or we might be looking for an elephant that everybody is looking at but not saying anything in different areas of our life. Can we talk a little bit about some of the other elephant stories that might exist for us out there?
Absolutely. So elephant stories, they come from three different places. Our culture comes from our experiences, comes from perception. So when you talk about culture, we talk about workplace culture, we talk about family culture. We all have this toxic person at work who's very problematic. It's an elephant in the room.
No one says anything.
No one talks about it.
Why?
We tiptoe.
Right?
Fear, right? That don't want to be the person who's the whistleblower. Same thing with our families. Right? We don't talk about, you know, family members who are in toxic relationships. We just talk about, but she can't divorce him. You know, she can't. She can't do that to the kids. It's an elephant. And also, elephant stories can also come from our perception of what we think about ourselves based on the experience we went through. Like me, I went through a very traumatic experience. How I saw myself was not good enough or not worthy enough. And that was what drove that whole narrative around it.
I remember when I started on this show thinking, oh my gosh, we do cooking segments like several times a week. I don't cook.
Right?
What does that mean for me as a host, but also as a mother? What are people going to think? Also, I came back to work really quickly after my second baby. What does that mean for me as a mother? And I think that there's always a little voice in our heads telling us, oh, you're doing something wrong. Maybe don't talk about it. And that's the shame that we need to bust. So it's the shame thrives in certain environments. How does shame thrive?
So in our elephant story, shame thrives with silence, secrecy, and judgment.
There you go.
Right? And it can be small small and it can be big.
Right.
And the way that we get over that shame, and remember, shame is a human experience.
Yeah.
If you feel shame, it means you're human.
Right.
So how do we get over that? First of all, identify your elephant story by why do I self-sabotage? What's getting in the way of me living my life fully? And also, what category is that emotion, that story coming from?
Okay.
Is it coming from a culture? Is it coming from, an experience? Or is
Yeah.
it just my perception of self? Because I had a very human experience.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would say also is take a look at the room. What room is that elephant story stemming from? Is it coming from the kitchen?
Right.
I'm not a good cook. Society says because I'm a wife and a mother, I'm supposed to cook.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the last thing is, Trace, reframe that story.
Yes.
The brilliant thing about us being humans is that we're also culture creators. You get to rewrite the narrative of how you want your story to end, like I did. I decided I was worthy of love. What I went through is not my fault. It happened to me, for me, not because of who I am.
Right.
And I find that when we find that space for us to talk about our stories and find someone who is worthy of hearing our stories,
Yeah.
we now build a bridge of grace and compassion that allows us or gives us access to our full version of who we are. And this is the power of you. You get to decide who shows up today, who gets to tell that story today, most importantly. You get to tell yourself, I am worthy of love. And that's what I did.
Yes.
So that guy I mentioned about that I was dating earlier,
Yeah.
he's my husband now. And we've been married for 8 years.
Wow! I love a story like that. Full circle. You deal with the demons, you deal with the elephant, and you can get past it and live your best life. I
Yes.
love it, Car. Thank you so much.